Hello everyone, Bill Molyneux here from Bill's Wargame World, and my mess here that I'm going to start getting cleaned up. We're still packing up the house. We'll be packing up the house for months. Alright, I figure I'm going to do a video every day or two for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just as a stress reliever. So, I put out a poll, Star Trek, World War II naval game, or plastic figures conversions. Overwhelming plastic figure conversions. This isn't going to be a real long video, but what we're going to hit upon is plastic figure conversions. Mostly, we're going to talk about heads for now. So I'm going to give you an example. Here's a Spanish-American War figure, and there's his head. All right, now I wanted a Spanish-American War figure that was carrying a bucket for an artillery piece. Okay, so I snipped the head off, then I put glue on it and put it on, and now I have a Spanish-American War figure. The same figure, he's now got a Spanish-American War hat on. All right, now how do we glue that on? Now you can take a pin and put a heated pin in both ends of the head and the torso after you cut the head off. E-6000 premium, and this smells pretty bad. So be aware of that. This is more powerful than regular E-6000, but this will actually melt Aerofix plastic, BMC plastic together, Armies in plastic. This will glue it. 72 hours to let it dry. So we have a general here with his binocular hands. Now let's say we want to turn that general to not have a head on. Let's say we want him to be bald. All right. So there's several different snippers I use. I do like to use the dog toenail clippers, but we're going to go ahead and snip the head off of this figure. All right. And I'll pause the camera here while I do this. All right. Well, we have snipped off. By the way, there's the dog snippers. There's the toenail snippers. This plastic was very soft to cut. This plastic needed the dog trimmers. This is BMC. This is Armies in plastic. All right, so now we have two heads. There they are. Now, the bottom of the head will have a seam like that. So you need a file. Man, let me back off the camera. And so you need to file it so it's flat. And I'll pause the camera for that. All right, everybody. Well, we now have our figure that we want to have just a head with no hat on them. So we're having an officer looking binoculars without a hat on. So our next step is we're going to hit it with E-6000. Now I put a little dab on. Now Donald Featherstone, the great wargamer himself, he has the entire chapter about doing this with arms, legs, weapons. Okay. So, and he was really big on using pins because back then the Aerofix plastic really was a pain to work with when it came to paint or anything else for that matter. So I've used E-6000, and I got a very weird, let me see here. I gotta get the angle up. Okay, now you see our head isn't perfect here. We need to move it around a little bit to get it just right. Now E-6000 will set pretty darn good for you. So now I have the head here mounted on. Now that should stay without flopping off or anything. Okay, so we're using E-6000. Now after I let that dry for 72 hours, I can put the binoculars on them and trim this all up. Now I might need to take the little Dremel. Now I may need to take the Dremel tool and grind a little bit in the back with the very fine grinder part of my Dremel tool. Okay, so, and I have several Dremels. I like this little itty bitty one. So my officer without a hat is going to be drying. And you see, his head is pretty good, but I picked him back up for all you viewers, and I tilted it a little bit more, and there it is. So now I have a totally different figure, and I can do that with, let's say, I'll pause the camera. Okay, I could do that with this figure here. Let's say I want to take this officer, and I want to take this pistol out and put a rifle in his hands. Okay, well, I could get a 3D printed rifle, and also I could ask Josh just to 3D print me um, an entirely new figure. But this is a really cool Marks figure, so I want to have a unique one with a rifle. So I go through and find one of my many figures of my figure piles and look for a rifle. The other thing I could do is I could put a flag in our figure's hands. I could remove the pistol and add a flag to it, or even a sword. All right, so these are all the different options out there. And honestly, a lot of plastic conversions weren't done as much as you would think, because until E-6000 really came along and some other epoxies, gluing plastic figures was almost a nightmare. Okay, now once it's all glued, you can paint it up. And of course, this is one of my painting jobs, not the great Jim Shaw, you can tell. But we'd be all set. I did put these in a really heavy polyurethane, and so they wouldn't chip. And I was using a really thick polyurethane because at that time I was doing a lot of school groups, and over in Franklin County, Pennsylvania, and Adams County. All right, so E-6000, you need some tweezers, some zappers, you need the toenail trimmers, dog nail choppers, a file, and the Dremel tool. This may not be needed depending on how detailed you want your figures to look. Now we have this other BMC figure, and then we have the other head. So I can now glue this figure's head on this one, and now I have a totally new officer figure with a hat on. What is neat is I did this a lot with a lot of my boxers. I took their heads off and put them on artillery crews, because armies and plastic and all don't make much in the way of Boxer Rebellion artillery crewmen. Okay? All right. Pretty easy. Make sure if you're using E-6000, I have to be really careful with paint and glues because of my wife and her health issues. So I'm just going to say tonight I'm going to do more packing, take care of my wife. Hopefully we got some more doctor things tomorrow with her. And I'm going to keep packing and staying perky. And I got to say thank you to all of you for watching. This video and all the way through December 31st is going to help a historic site. I got to make sure with Mr. Wade Solowski, the famous author and historian, that we have the right site picked. And thank you for all your kind notes and PMs and messages regarding my home world. And that's it for now. Stay safe, be kind, be courteous, and thank you all for watching and giving me such great support lately. Bye bye, and don't forget E-6000 and Kevin, Colonel Handsome of the Chuckleheads, would say, be true to your school. Bye bye, everyone.